All right, welcome, fellow Shopify entrepreneurs. I had a situation with one of my Shopify stores the other day, and I wanted to tell you all my tale and help educate you, fellow Shopify entrepreneurs, on how you can prevent the same thing. We're talking about fraud today. We're talking about fraudulent orders today. And so on the Shopify App Store, anybody can download this app called the Fraud Filter app. I did a video about this way back in the day, but there's been some changes, and the icon is actually very different looking. It used to be black and yellow. Now it is blue and has these kind of levers. But this is a free app. It's made and developed by Shopify. So if you have any problems with it, you can go right to Shopify. It's not a third-party app that'll mess anything up on your store. But I had an issue the other day. I was getting a lot of, two different issues actually, where I was getting kind of hit with a lot of spam, suspicious looking orders and customers. And so I was able to use the Fraud Filter app to help with a lot of this. And this is what was going on. So the first step is just to go to the Shopify App Store. You can type in Fraud Filter or fraud, and you can find the Fraud Filter app. This one is made by Shopify. It is free to use. It can help with a lot of fraudulent activity in your store. Once you hit install, you can add it to your store, and it'll look like this to start. Down here in the corner, you can add rules. You can add orders that have come into your orders. This is just a test store, just for testing purposes. But essentially the way this app works is it allows you to add filters based on customer information for orders coming into your store, that if these filters and these rules are triggered, you can cancel an order so you're not dealing with any suspicious activity. For example, we can see in the pictures here demonstrating this, there's a filter set up for suspicious looking emails. And then this is kind of what it looks like on the admin when you're selecting and creating rules by emails. In this case, contains the example email that you set up. And then here is just the list of filters that you add. And the more and more that you add, it creates a list like this that has a created column and an orders affected column with a clickable link that you can see where the filter was triggered. So if we go back to our admin and we click add new filter, this is kind of what the new updated app looks like. It looks a little bit different than the last video I made. And so we have three sections. We have the details of the filter, and we have the rules, which is the most important part, and then we have the options of what to do if the rules triggered. In my first case that I'm going to talk to you about, I was getting a lot of orders all at the exact same time, all for the same amount. So I run multiple Shopify stores, and I've been doing so for such a long time, and I know what my businesses are expecting to produce day to day. So on my orders tab right here, the other day, I had like 20 orders come in all at the exact same time, like 1:13 in the afternoon, 52 seconds, 20, boom, 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 20 orders all come in at the same time. I was like, what the heck is this? More suspiciously, all the orders had $0 total. I don't have any $0 items on my store. So that didn't make any sense at all. So this is clearly multiple flags for bot activity. So one way I can deal with this, and you can deal with this if you ever run into this specific situation, is we can set some rules. Now, these are the rules in the Fraud Filter app that you can use to warn you if suspicious activity is going on, or just straight up cancel the order. That's what I did. We can look at all the rules that we can set this up to. So we can set it up for emails. If you're getting spam emails, sometimes a lot of the time the email changes per order, especially if it's just bots randomly creating email addresses. So that's hard. But this can also be used if you have like a issue with a customer and you don't want that customer to order anymore from you. Maybe you got a chargeback and that's a bad actor. You can add their email or their credit card number or anything like this to that. So if they try to order again, or a fraudulent actor or a bot tries to order, you can filter that out. So we can do by email address, landing site, that's like where they landed, the referring site. Maybe your website got added to some bad actor third-party company, and there's a bunch of traffic volume coming from a referral site that you don't want. You can block all those orders coming in from there. The subtotal price. So this is what happened in my case. So you can add a filter for subtotal price, subtotal price or total price, or the browser IP. Now, the browser IP address sounds complicated to get to, but actually it's not, because when you are in your order screen in your Shopify dashboard, there's a option in the corner left called some sort of fraud analysis. This is called Fraud Filter. And then there's a fraud analysis tool that essentially tells you and warns you if there's any issues. And one thing that it can identify is the IP address that the order is coming from, along with other things like how far the shipping address and the billing address is, if it's a commonly used IP address for fraud, these kind of things. So if you're seeing orders come in fraudulently or orders coming in from a specific IP address, you can add the IP address value here and you can block these things. Other things like AVS code, CVV code, credit card number, and credit card company are kind of where my second story comes in with all this. So in one of my Shopify stores way back in the day now, I was having a situation where I was having real orders come in. They weren't $0 totals. They were actually for my products and they looked fine, but they were all turning into fraudulent orders, big warnings internally on the Shopify admin. It was just multiple flags of fraud popping up. It's like, what was going on with this? And so we realized that there was a common factor between all of these orders that were being separated, and that was the credit card number. The credit card number, sometimes an issuing credit card company or a bank shares the same beginning credit card numbers. And so what we did is we added a field here to block credit card numbers if they started with this credit card issuing company or bank's number, just to mitigate any potential future fraudulent orders coming in from that company that looked a little fraudulent. We didn't want to deal with any of that. So that's one thing that we did as well. Other things you can do, of course, is the billing address, the customer, the first name, the last name, the phone number, the city, province, the country, the province if you need. We don't want to block all our orders for our business, but if you're having a problem, you definitely don't want fraudulent orders. You don't want to be dealing with stolen credit cards or chargebacks or anything like that. So you want to protect your business at the same time. And then of course, there's shipping address information here. And there's client filters and customer filters down here if you want to get super specific. But in the case that I had where all the $0 orders were coming in, what we did here was we just added this. So we went to subtotal price in this case is the field for the rule, and the operation. We have a lot more things here. Is not, contains, does not contain, begins with. And these are important because all of these rules can be numbers, can start with numbers, are names and numbers and email addresses and stuff like that. For example, like if you wanted to block email addresses from fraudulent maybe activity and they all ended in a certain @ email address, you can add that and then the operation contains at that address. But in our case, in our example, I used subtotal price and then I just hit simply is, and then this is just the field that you can remove here, and we went 0 value, and then you add the rule. That's in as it is right now. We called this filter name just, $0 order. And then we can select the option here at the bottom to what we want to do with this. So do we want to restock the product inventory that was bought? Yes, you can check that off. You can send a cancellation email. Yes, check that off. And then refund the transaction if applicable, if available. We did that for all of those. And then the action here is super important too. So you can action it so that the system, if this rule is flagged and triggered, you can have the order canceled immediately, or you can just have it warn you in the Shopify admin. Now, in this case, we're adding multiple layers of protection. So in our case, we canceled the order immediately because we wanted this to be automated and we didn't want to waste any time with it. We can still see afterwards, if we were interested, how many orders were actioned using this rule. There is a warning here as well. However, if you get a fraudulent order, Shopify has that built-in tool on your order screen that analyzes these things for you, and it gives you a warning anyway. It can say like low risk, medium risk, action recommended is to contact the buyer, or high risk in red where it says like action recommended is to cancel order. So in this case, in these specific rules, we just hit cancel order. So then what we do is we have our name. This is just what you see. And then our action, our rules is if the subtotal is 0. And then we have these actions as well enabled. Then we hit save. Then we can see our rules. You can see the filter name for us, when it was created, and then the orders affected will update here automatically. So again, we can go add new filter here. In the separate example I was just describing with the suspicious feeling and looking card numbers. So we can just call this whatever we want. Card numbers starting with 1, 2, 3, 4. And we want to action this to cancel our order. So we can go field and we can go credit card number. And then in this case, we can say begins with, and then we can change our value to 1, 2, 3, 4 to match the credit card number of this kind of company that we were dealing with. And then we can add or subtract any of these again. And then once again, we can save it. And now we have a separate rule. So these are individual. This is scanning just for the credit card number starting with 1, 2, 3, 4. This is scanning for any orders. That subtotal is $0 order because, there may be applicable taxes changing the total order amount. Again, you just have to be wary about what happens if an actual non-fraudulent order comes in that gets triggered here and it gets automatically canceled. For example, if we have a $0 subtotal, but we were offering maybe a really good deal at the time and someone used, some gift cards or something, and something gets triggered here that actually takes a real order and marks it as fraudulent, you just have to be mindful of that as well. And that's why you can review the orders affected here in the corner. But another thing you can do here is you can add multiple rules to the same filter. Another really good example of this is if you are not selling to other markets, you can tell if a fraudulent order comes in and it's not a market you come from or you're selling to. Or if you just do local business in your area and somebody puts in a phone number that is outside of your range, you're not going to be able to serve them. You can add a filter for this. There's so many things that you can do with this, especially with the operations here is less than, equal than. If you're having a specific issue with a customer and you can add their customer email here specifically, right from the order page. Maybe this was a customer that you just don't want to do business with anymore. You say you sent them items, there was chargebacks, there was refunds, and it was a whole issue. If you run a business, you're going to have good customers and bad customers. So if you just don't want to deal with a specific customer, you can put their email address here. Maybe if they have different email addresses, you can add the first name. The first name here, if the order is Jim Brown, and the last name is Brown in this example, we can then set a rule for Jim Brown to have their orders canceled immediately because we don't want to deal with them anymore. But this can also be used for other things. For example, if you only serve like a very local market or you're only shipping to your country or your province, you can select state and province here. And if it does not contain the state of, Florida, or it doesn't contain the state of or the province of Ontario, you can set to cancel the order and send a cancellation email. We don't serve that area. We can't fulfill that order. There's even the country code right here. So if you just do not want to sell to a country code or a country where there might be increased fraudulent activity, you can write the country code here. If it contains this country code, which we definitely don't sell to, and we definitely aren't doing business in, but we get an order, that could indicate a high risk of fraud, and we don't want to deal with that. And so we can have an automatic cancel order automation by inserting the country code value here. So AVS codes and CVV codes, these are ways of authenticating a credit card. They're kind of more often seen if, for example, you have a POS device. I learned this with my POS device. There's an option in the POS Shopify app to enable AVS code and CVV code verification so that you're not dealing with stolen credit cards or reported stolen credit cards or credit cards that are locked or anything like this, just as another extra layer of security. But it's interesting that they mention them here as well. So I just wanted to make this really quick video for anyone else dealing with fraudulent orders, spam, bots on their online store. You got to keep in mind that an online store is a public storefront, and so there's no way to prevent all fraud always 100% of the time. However, there are some tools and free tools here that in my case worked really well for me, that can be used in a ton of different variety of ways for your specific issues that can be adjusted and looked into at any time. In this case, using the Fraud Filter app for my Shopify store worked really well. And if you're having issues with these things, hopefully it will work well for you as well. If this video has helped you, leave a like on the video so I know. I just like helping fellow Shopify entrepreneurs and growing a community of like-minded entrepreneurs so we can all grow our business dreams together. And if you really liked it, consider subscribing to the channel. If you do, I will see you in the next video.